Hello there, welcome friends to a new month. Clobby'S Comics Corner Spinnerack Time Machine, November 1971. Nice round number, that 50 years, isn't it? It was a wonderful time to be buying comic books, and many of us, whether we were there or not, would definitely want to buy a bunch of these. For those who are unfamiliar, if you're just stumbling across this video, there will be, of course, a link in my description below to the playlist of all of my Spinnerack Time Machine vids. I hope you enjoy a little walk down memory lane with, in the Bronze Age. Basically, I have a TARDIS, a time machine, disguised as a comic book spinner rack from 1971. Hey, Kids Comics, for those of us who remember the Bronze Age. But even if you don't, this will give you a chance to learn a little bit about what the comic book industry was, when it was healthy and thriving, pretty much almost at its zenith, really, or certainly at its peak in terms of, I hate the word diversity the way it's been abused, but it is diverse in the genres, the many different genres that comic books engaged in. And what I do here is I pretend as if I, who was 7 years old when these comics came out, go into this back in time into comic shops as if I had a folder, as they call them, or a pull list. And I picked 9 to 10 comics a week that I would have chosen either back then or even I do blend that with my 2021 sensibilities. And so I picked from that rack each week. I give you a little brief example of how many comics are out at that point. Then I picked 9 or 10 and just show you a picture, just briefly talk about them a bit. Nothing like a deep dive or anything, just to give you an idea of the comics. Now, of course, I'm a big time superhero geek, so I kind of stay big two superhero-y, with my selections, but I'll show you all of them later. And of course, the next day there will be Clobby'S quick bits, tomorrow, the following day after this video is released, to show you some of the ones that did not make the cut, just to give you some love to the other wonderful titles that were out there and available back then in week 1 of November 1971. So, and just to give you an idea of how many comics there were back then on the stands, and and how many different publishers. Wow, look at that. We're going to select about, I think, 9 or 10 of those today. But just to give you an example, that's a lot of comics and a lot of publishers. And of course, in the follow-up video, we'll talk about a little bit about the other publishers. But right now, let's take a look at what I, Clobby, your host, would have chosen November week 1, 1971. Here you go. First up, of course, Daredevil number 84. A comic that I'm a big Daredevil fan. I've done a couple recently did a show about the pre-Miller years of Daredevil on my Monday night Mark C Comics Talk. And yes, I love The Man Without Fear, and I loved him even before Miller got a hold of him. And I loved him after that, always have. And this issue, of course, 84, story by Jerry Conway, art Gene Colan. This was during the Gene Colan era, pretty much, which I dearly loved. And of course, inked by Golden Age great Sid Shores, and is always often, I should say, was the case with a lot of Marvel series, including the Daredevil books, covered by the great Gil Kane. So is that not just a thing of beauty right there? You got to love a Kane cover, and I got to love old Hornhead there. Next up will be Thor, number 196. This is Jerry Conway with the story again, right smack dab in the John Buscema run of this character. Again, there's nothing more definitive than the Kirby run, of course, but I love the John Buscema run, and I'm not the biggest fan of Vince Coletta on the inks, but whoever was, I guess. But still, great run on Thor. Good stuff. Covered by, of course, John Buscema and the great John Romita and the great John Severin. There are a lot of greats. Well, I use that. I probably overused the term, but a lot of these creators and artists back then were greats to me. Now we're going to do a little reprint action. I talk about this quite a bit. Back then, it wasn't like, it is now with all of the trade paperback compilations and things like that. The way you got to read older stuff back then usually was Marvel and DC, in attempts to save money, they had a huge backlog of things, comics that had not seen the light of day or been reprinted very often. And so they were also flooding the racks, trying to fight not only with DC, who was doing it as well with reprints, fighting a lot of the up and coming publishers like Atlas, Seaboard, or and of course Charlton Comics, Gold Key, all these other Archie, all these competitors for rack space, spinner rack space, or the newsstand race, or the drugstore. And so that's why you see a lot of reprint books from that era. Some mixed in with new stories, but in the case of some of these Western comics, because they weren't really making a lot of new Western comics at this point, at least Marvel wasn't. Old Atlas Marvel reprints from the in a lot of cases 50s and 60s, and that's what this one has here, quite a bit. And it's funny when you do the research on some of these things. Some of those Westerns, it was before Stan Lee revolutionized the credit box in comics, so not a lot of writer credit, but artist credit for sure. Sid Shores, and again, one of the greats from the Golden Age. Joe Maneely, very tragic story about that man that we should talk about one day, because he died fairly young by an accident, but he was one of the great artists of his day. Story 3 is by Doug Wildey. Yes, that Doug Wildey, the creator of Johnny Quest. So, and another Mike Sekowsky, who was again did a lot of DC stuff. More famous for his Justice League run, Justice League of America run. The original artist on that title. So, and of course, a magnificent cover. What a great cover that is. I love that. By another great, John Severin. Loved his stuff. Another Severin cover on this one also, which was again various Western reprints. The Western Kid #2. Did I say that? Did I speak the title of this one yet? This one was called Western Gunfighters #8. Black Rider, Apache, and Outlaw Kid. So I forgot to say the title of that one. Sorry. Western Kid #2 though is strewn with a few reprints of the old volume 1 of the Western Kid. This, of course, being volume 2, the reprint edition, with Stanley and other various writers, at least from that point as far as we know, and some interior art by John Romita and Don Heck, and again that nifty cover by John Severin. And again, more reprints. I mean, like I said, there were times they saved money. They had deadlines and all kind of other things. At this period, for a while, it's strange. This is one of the stranger reprints for me, because it's Wonder Woman 198, and it reprints stories from just a couple of years previous that aren't that old. Wonder Woman 183 and 184. Story and art by Mike Sekowsky. Now, Mike Sekowsky was mostly known as an artist, but from what I understand, he did some writing and did the pencils on this, inked by, apparently, from what I could tell, the great Dick Giordano, who also did the cover. So strange that they were reprinting. It's one thing like those Western books I was just mentioning, reprinting stuff from 20 years previous or 10, 15 years, whatever it is, which they were often want to do at Marvel and DC. But this, I don't know, deadline issues. And the list, if you know a little bit about comics history, Wonder Woman never was the biggest seller. It was cheaper to do it that way, I guess. I'm really excited about this next one, because I love me some DC 100 pagers, and we're in ultra reprint territory with this one. Now it's listed as, and this is Batman number 238, but as they did with the Superman title last month, I believe it was two something or other. I forget the number. Even though they had 2 issues of the Superman title last month, one was just a big 100-page reprint like this one, and this is what they did. This is one of my favorite covers, by the way. I love this cover. It's all reprints. I love the this Neil Adams cover. Always have. But this thing is chock full of reprints. We think one story in there may not be a reprint, but I've always thought they all. So just take this as a gigantic reprint of pretty much everything. David V. Reed apparently been around a long time. Win Mortimer on the art. Other guys like Chris Paris. There's definitely there's a Doom Patrol reprint in there from My Greatest Adventure, number 80. Arnold Drake, Bob Haney, Bruno Premiani. You've got Jack Cole Plastic Man reprint from way back. All this is Golden Age stuff, just about these reprints, and some silver. You got guys like John Broome, Joe Kubert art in there. This is just one of the great. I love these DC 100 pagers. I really do. And it's often this is often confused as world's greatest superheroes, such and such. It's got a designation for, but for its number. But it is Batman 238. Let's see here. Yet Ramona Fraden art. Edmund Hamilton is a legion. Man, the Legion, a big Legion of superheroes fan. There's obviously not only Legion on the cover, but a very old Adventure Comics reprint. Edmund Hamilton and John Forte on the Legion. So this is, I have this one somewhere. I could look at these covers, especially these wraparound covers for these DC 100 page spectaculars all day long. Now we have love this Gil Kane cover on Amazing Spider-Man 105. Story by Stan, art by the great Gil Kane on the interior as well. I love Gil Kane's Spidey run. As I've often said, Spidey was pretty lucky. He starts out with Ditko, then he gets the great Romita, the great Gil Kane, and I like the one after that, the Ross Andrew run as well. So Spidey had some excellent art runs there. Frank Giacoya. Yes, Giosha. I always forget how you say his name. On the interior, and of course, Kane and Giosha on the cover art. And I love the Spider Slayer. Look, this is a great. I always love the design of the Bronze Age covers, but this is just some amazing stuff. You gotta love Gil Kane. Well, I gotta. Avengers 96. Here we are again for the third month in a row, smack dab in the middle of the classic. One of the all-time classic sagas of comics history, the Kree-Skrull War. Roy Thomas, the rascally one himself, still on the story, of course, is his baby. Neil Adams and Tom Palmer on the interiors, with the Neil Adams and probably Tom Palmer inked. I wasn't sure that he inked it, but anyway, they just credit Adams with the cover, but whatever the case may be, I love it. I love it. And who doesn't love the Kree-Skrull? It makes me want to go back. I haven't read it in a while. It makes me want to go back, and I probably will. I have multiple reprints. It's been reprinted many times. And just reread the Kree-Skrull War. It's a classic, as mentioned. Captain America and the Falcon, number 146. When I first picked, as I mentioned here, the broken record, the first comic book I ever got with Captain America was called Captain America and the Falcon. This was, of course, Gary Friedrich on the story. This was an interesting time. Sal Buscema, John Verpoorten on the art. Gotta love me some Sal. I love Sal Buscema. And a cover by John Romita. So, and when I say Romita, look, there was no junior back then, folks. It's just John Romita. Don't even have to say senior. Love the guy. But anyway, nice cover. And of course, what an era for Cap. And finally, to close off week one, we've got the Incredible Hulk 148. Love me some Hulk. And these, it's interesting. This was very early on in the career of Chris Claremont. He co-wrote this one with the late great Archie Goodwin. And art chores by probably one of my favorite Hulk art teams, really. Herb Trimpe and John Severin, with a Trimpe and Severin cover as well. The Girl in the Emerald Atom. Jarella. I love Jarella. You killed Jarella, the girl Hulk loves. For that you die. It was so sad what later actually happened to Jarella. I remember many years later when, if you know her fate, it was so sad for Hulk. But anyway. So, yeah, I love this one. Love them all. It's great stuff. And looks to be a fun month of Clobby'S Comics Corner Spinner Rack Time Machine. As always, folks, if you look in the description below, you can see not only a link to the the playlist for all of my Clobby'S Comics Corner Spin Rack Time Machine videos. But you can see various ways to contact me. And please leave in the comments below anything you have to say about the comics I chose. What do you think of those choices? What would have been yours? Some of the again, there's a link to my. By the way, I should have mentioned that first. Mike's Amazing Or where I get my, I pull these covers from that I showed you a little glimpse of. Well, see right there, that site. There's a link to this extraordinary site, which I love, in which you can search any era, any comics you want, in my description below. So if you want to look at the ones from November 1971 and tell me what some of the ones you would have picked up, I'm definitely interested to hear that. And so a big shout out to one of my favorite viewers of the Spin Rack Time Machine, Hungry Boy, a great artist in his own right, and he made this amazing Cluboni pick for us, and I'm just as proud as punch to display that. Hungry Boy, we love you, man, and we appreciate your art. I wanted to give you a special shout out on Clobby'S Comics Corner Spin Rack Time Machine. You the man, buddy. Thank you for that, and thank you all for watching this video. Please join me tomorrow for Clobby'S Quick Bits, where I will do a little wrap up of the comics that did not make the cut. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Shout out to Raquel Ridge.